Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Java. It's Thursday, and this is for August 24th, 2023. Wanted to ask all of you out there, if you don't mind, you have an opinion on what I cover here. I do a light bit of the overview of the markets and what affects them, namely labor, the banks, and housing and jobs. And then after that, I do some lava updates on some kind of off the wall stories. I have gotten some positive feedback for that. So please let me know which sections you prefer, what you would prefer to see, because I would like to do this is not just for me, and I don't want to um, be the only one in this. I'd like to know what you think. So if you would in the comments, and I will read those. So on to our markets, we are looking at our MMRI risk indicator. Did come down from yesterday again. So quite a bit of movement, very volatile yesterday as we expected, had NVIDIA earnings and quite a bit of stuff going on. But we're back down. Gold shot up, silver shot up in a bit of a fear trade prior to the NVIDIA earnings after market. So we can see that the volatility index is back down. And markets look, I think they're going to chop today because they look very indecisive. We are getting some information which can potentially move these, namely some PMI data. We'll go over this next. So we'll be watching the relative strength of the dollar and the 10-year as always. The yield curve, this is something important to note, is beginning to uninvert, so to speak. So it's getting closer. Once it does, that could be serious pressure for the market. So we'll watch that. So today we do have some interviews coming from the Jackson Hole Summit, where the Fed is meeting. Huge one, jobless claims. Go over why, and then durable goods orders. So right now it is fall. Everybody's going back to school. We've got the BRICS Summit going on and a couple of other things. So fall is typically a weak month as well as into October for the markets. So just want to urge a little caution because they are pretty choppy feeling at the moment and very precarious, still in high risk. So on with our oil. Just have a couple of stories. Namibia found $11 billion, 11 billion barrels worth off of the coast. So that could be very significant for the supply side. And then the flip side of that is that Saudi has vowed to continue their restriction of supply at least through today, and that is going to very definitely affect prices. So back to BRICS, as I was saying, two large things happened yesterday. One was that they did agree to expand with 6 other nations. Among them are Iran, Saudi, and Egypt. So these are oil-rich, resource-rich countries. And the second thing that was significant was they were discussing how they would be doing this trading within their currencies or how they were going to set that up. So that, in my opinion, will be a market mover when they announce what they will be doing. So I'll keep you informed on that in case you haven't heard anything from mainstream media. On to the banks. Got a little bit of news. Another bank, TD Bank, quarterly profit falls, so their stock is sliding. And this is nowhere near done yet. We were speaking of this yesterday. We're going to watch news filtering in of one bank after another, maybe a few at a time, that are going to go into trouble, get merged, closing doors, shutting branches, because this is going to continue for some time for the small and medium banks as they get absorbed by the mega banks. So, a couple of stories on central banks. The Turkish central bank are looking at hiking their policy 20%. So the reason is they are experiencing, I wouldn't call it hyperinflation, but definitely like a superinflation, and they are looking to protect their currency. So in order to do that, they're trying to hike and keep kind of some confidence, if you will. Argentina on the other side with the political changes that they're looking at. They are dollarizing. So they're looking at going back to the dollar with the trade, kind of siding with the West in that way, and also looking at alternatives, possibly Bitcoin. We'll see what happens with that. The political change hasn't actually happened yet. So, on to what affects our markets, what we can look forward to. As we expected, after the existing sales drop, new home sales rose. As we were talking about the builder incentives, they were the only markets moving. So, I hope anybody did well off of this one because that we could see that coming. So down the road, we see a couple of things are headwinds for the real estate market in the US. Number one, and also probably Europe, rising property taxes, and in the United States, insurance. So homeowners insurance, which is required for the loans, will be going out of control as a lot of these weather phenomena are happening. Less insurance companies are willing to insure at all. And if they are, the premiums are very high. Okay, this is a large story. If you didn't see this yesterday, the Labor Department revised their numbers by 306,000. That's a significant amount of jobs that just kind of evaporated. So, and this is right in front of the Fed chair speech. So it will be an affecting factor as to whether they look at hiking their rates. It's good excuse for them to take the data either way. So we've got the jobs data we're getting today will be, could be a market mover. It will be watched for certain. For the jobs, we are looking at GM. As we were seeing yesterday, they are shutting their Arizona IT center, cutting almost 1,000 jobs. And these are higher end jobs. These are not low level jobs. So we're going to watch this. Intel is looking at focusing on preserving capital within the company, as most larger companies are. This is a very telling sign. So they terminated a contract. They were going to purchase a semiconductor company, and they have decided to kind of just go inward and go into basically preservation mode. Okay, some stories on the supply demand side. A couple of tankers colliding in Egypt's Suez Canal. Nothing to see here, move on. Briefly disrupting traffic, as these stories are just hilarious. Anyway, so they're kind of setting that up to be ready for more supply issues as they get stopped in the canals. So, regarding our food source, India has now added sugar to the ban exports. So, sugar prices are going to shoot through the roof, as well as from the other side, we've got Japan is now, they're looking at releasing the water from the Fukushima issue. So, salt, sea salt in particular, is going to rise in price. And we're looking at meat traders for the imports. So this is going to be an issue in how they control meat prices. One note that's good, Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, has banned lab-grown meat. I love that woman. It's really good. Okay, so now on to our lava updates. Ironically, we did a story yesterday on these little buggers that are buzzing around, inoculating people with things that they've been inoculated with, doing their version of sharing. And all of a sudden, all three of these stories come out. So they're very related, but very different at the same time. This is a unique issue, disease, if you will. We've got West Nile with this one that they're saying is rising in numbers. And then we've got dengue. And so these were just released. Texas, Southern California, and Florida. They were doing experiments, and now we've got reports of these things increasing in numbers. Something to watch. I'll go into depth on these probably in a separate segment. I don't want to do it here. I may get banned for that. We'll see what happens. Kind of testing a little. And then my last three stories. This one, a UN-led fight against the locusts that hit food supplies last year. So what happened was they stepped in, they gave them chemical sprays, but they gave them chemicals that were banned in several countries, known to cause health hazards. So they saved their food crop, but now no one will buy the food crop because it's been sprayed with all these chemicals. More into depth on that later. So now a short story on travel and limiting ability of movement. Americans will need an authorization form starting next year to travel to Europe. It's not a visa, but it's one more collecting your data and restricting your movement kind of move. I got one last one. It's a giant sunspot. do cause radio wave disruptions. And I just want to mention Faraday cloth, or pulling your batteries from your, if you are concerned about any items, pull your batteries and separate them until it is past, and that should protect them at least. With that, I wish you all a wonderful day. Great green trading day if you are a trader. And until I see you again next time, my friends, stay free.